Hello, 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 and welcome to a special edition of Shine. As you know, I normally go live on Wednesday, but if you tuned in last week, you know that tomorrow is a very special day. That is the day that it's April 21st, and that is the day that I celebrate the life of Prince. And so we are going live today, and I have a super special guest that I'm excited to bring to you. Today, we have Miss Emily Conroy with us in the house. She is backstage and she's excited to come on and share with you about her own journey and also the great work that she and her organization do for the women entrepreneurs in Tanzania. So let me go ahead and tell you about Miss Emily and bring her on. So Emily's background is in broadcast journalism, psychology, nonprofit leadership. Emily joined World Encounter, WE, I like that, we, as a consultant in 2017 with the responsibility of growing their marketing. Her work with We brought her to Tanzania, where she was so moved by the stories of these women that she felt called continuing to work for them as an advocate in St. Paul. And that's in Minnesota for those of you tuning in from around the world. In 2020, she became the CEO and has since boosted fundraising through advocacy, partnerships, and give back programs, workshops, and events. She continues to share World Encounter's story, aiming to boost brand recognition in the Twin Cities and beyond. Please join me in welcoming Miss Emily Conroy. Welcome. Give her some hearts. Give her some hearts if you're watching. Hey, Emily, welcome.
Thank you, Dorothy-Inez. I'm so happy to join you in conversation today.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you. You know, this was an impromptu thing, and I was like, let's get these people on because we've got a great event happening this coming weekend that we want to get out there and share the heart and inspiration around this event and around the organization that you have the honor and privilege of representing. So let's just dive in, Emily. Are you ready?
Yes.
Are you
Let's
sure?
do it. I am ready. I am ready.
Yay. So, Emily, tell us, when you and I first met a couple of weeks ago, we had an instant bond, and you told me this amazing story of how you ended up with this organization and a little bit of rebellion that, happened that led you here. So, tell our viewers about your story and how you got involved.
Yeah. So I think probably a lot of people have a really non-linear approach to how they entered the career or the space that they're in. And that's true to me. I studied psychology and broadcast journalism in college and spent a very short time reporting. And I just knew I wasn't in the right space. It was not what I was being called to do. And like many people, I would ignore that. Like, no, this is what I paid all of that tuition for.
Right.
But I found myself in the nonprofit industry, and I just knew that's where I was supposed to be. I spent a few years with Boys and Girls Clubs of America. And then I moved over to the University of Minnesota. And while I was there, I had a lot of small nonprofits, rural nonprofits, approach me to help them with fundraising plans and marketing plans, and really how do we get our mission out there, especially when we're serving communities no one has ever seen, no one has ever heard of. Right. And so I've really felt called to be in that space. And so I was helping mostly Midwestern nonprofits. And in about 2000, I think it was 2016, I was doing consulting after my 8 to 5. And I don't know, during my lunch break, I just felt something and I was like, I've got to act on this. So I call my husband and I'm like, hey, think I think I'm supposed to do international work. I really feel strongly that I'm supposed to be doing something. I don't know what it is yet, but let's sell our house.
Wow. And he was like, yeah, let's sell the house, babe, right?
Yeah, no. And so at first it was kind of just like, why? Like I was just like, well, you have to trust me in this. I feel like basically like if we put this out there, if we make these moves, that's going to align with what I'm supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So and I'd already called the realtor. Like I wasn't taking no for an answer.
So you were trying to make it seem like it was really his choice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the wheels were already in motion. And so we sold our house. And about the same time we sold the house, I had been approached to speak at the Rose event that is in honor of World Encounter, a fundraiser for World Encounter. So as an entrepreneur, I'm preparing to give a presentation at this fundraiser. And as I'm working with World Encounter and learning about them, I catch wind that they're looking to hire someone to travel to Tanzania, where they have a microloan program where over 4,000 women living in rural Tanzania. And when I say rural, I have to remind those listening that this means these people are living in rural spaces that are really off the grid. There's not electricity there. There's not running water. They don't have proper toilets. And just to remind people, like there are those areas of the world that are very marginalized and still exist. And that's where World Encounter is and is intentional about being there. So there's no Wi-Fi. There's no.
And didn't you tell me like they walk like 11 miles or something to get to any of that type of stuff?
Yeah, the miles that women have to walk definitely vary depending on like where they're located and then how close to the rainy season it's been. So if there's access to water that's closer or further. But I know a lot of the women that I work with, they'll spend up to 4+ hours a day walking to water.
Wow.
But so I met World Encounter and I was like, like send me to Tanzania. Like I freaking sold my house. Like, let's do this. I'm in, I'm 100% in. And so I got to meet with Kurt Rosen, the founder of World Encounter, and their investors at Hero Plumbing and Heating, who really believe in the mission of World Encounter and also the power of marketing. And so at the end of 2017, my husband and I went to Tanzania. And, I had been working in the nonprofit sector for over a decade at this point. And I kind of saw this as a consulting opportunity to get more involved in international development and INGO space. But when I got to meet the women who are in the World Encounter program and see what they did with their microloan and how they are changing the community and they are changing the future of every child born in those villages moving forward and really creating space for women to step into their power, I was just so invested and so bought in. And the sustainability of it. That's one thing too that's super important to me when I decide how I'm going to personally spend my donor dollars is the organization a sustainable program? Meaning that if something happened, could the participants of this nonprofit still succeed? And here the answer was yes, because these women, they get 3 years of support, 3 years of microloans, and they have to work in a cohort of 10 other women. And so the sisterhood is formed, and they can go to that sisterhood for anything: joy, pain, business tips, celebrations, lifting each other up. And that's when I interview our participants time and time again, it's not the capital that they think made them successful. It's the sisterhood. It's the success circle, because anyone who's an entrepreneur knows that there's good times and bad times. There's joys, there's struggles. Mm-hmm. And when you have a group of women lifting you up through those struggles and saying, I've got your back, like I've got you, it makes the world of difference. And And actually, as of today, World Encounter has 100% success rate in the repayment of their microloans, and it's
Can you
100%.
I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
because you said this word about 4 times, microloan. So
yes.
some of our viewers may not understand what microloan is. Can you share what is a microloan?
Yeah, great question. So for those who, microloan is a new term. Essentially, a microloan is what a lot of developing nations use for capital. It's the same as if you are a business owner and you took out a business loan to get started. Micro just means it's very small because we're dealing in a developing economy. And so the first loan a woman receives in our microloan program is the equivalent of 60 US dollars.
Wow.
That helps her launch her business, get her supplies. And then, so that's the money she gets to spend on her business. She chooses. That's another big thing with World Encounter is we want to be as inclusive as possible and remove all the barriers. So we're not telling the women what sort of businesses to run, how to run it. We're just guiding them. Like, here's your capital, here's your sisterhood, and then once a month we also have business consultants. So if they need to learn bookkeeping or how to make their market stand out in front of their competitors, just any sort of business tips and advice, that's what we're there to coach them through every year.
That's beautiful. So you're really giving them everything that they need to be successful. And I agree that sisterhood, that it's like the U.S. version of what we call mastermind.
Yes.
A mastermind group to be able to have those sisters, because we're the average of the 5 people we hang around. And so for them to have, what did you say, 10?
Yes.
10 fabulous sisters.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just remember like the first time I was in the room with one of the World Encounter success circles, just like the energy and the joy and the laughter in the room. And I thought to myself, I want a success circle. Like, I want 9 sisters who I meet with monthly and have my back and can help me through, like, how should I approach this, business strategy, to how do I deal with a toddler, like all the things in between. And so, it's honestly beautiful. And I fell in love with it. And so when I got back from Tanzania, I knew that I wanted to keep working with World Encounter, and I just didn't know how or, what that would look like until, time continued to go by, and the founder, Kurt Rosen, had decided it was time to retire. And so I put my, name in the ring to be the new CEO of World Encounter. And at the start of 2020, became the CEO of World Encounter. And, one of the hardest years, obviously, to step into a position of leadership. Yeah. What ended up, what was supposed to be a year of kind of onboarding and listening and learning became crisis management, when the pandemic hit, and you're working in 2 different countries, and those countries are handling the pandemic differently, communicating about the pandemic differently. And so, we did everything in our power to make sure that the 700 active participants in our microloan program received their business loans, luckily right at the start of 2020. Right. But since these are very rural villages, that, we know that they don't have the same access to news and information as well. So we worked with our staff to try to distribute as much information as we had. And every nonprofit and business is in the same boat. Like, we're doing the best we can with the circumstances, but that means a lot of pivoting. Right. And since we are a nonprofit, how we make money to serve our mission is through fundraising. And so last year, what used to be a very large in-person event turned into a virtual event. And it ended up kind of having a silver lining, because we've been hosting the Rose event for 9 years now. And Rose stands for Reaching Out to Sister Entrepreneurs.
Don't
Oh,
tell
am
them.
I jumping ahead? I'm jumping.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
jumping
Save
ahead.
that for later. Okay.
Hold it. Hold
Okay.
it.
Okay.
I know it's good, but hold that. So before we get into the Rose event, I want you to share, briefly share with the audience, why this work, why this work matters. What does supporting, when one does choose to donate and support your organization, what's the legacy effect, I guess, because these women are starting these businesses? Who's affected?
Great question, Dorothy-Inez. It's what's so beautiful about this is like the ripple effect of things that happen when you invest in women. First, World Encounter is a small organization. And what's great about that is that we get to know our program participants on a personal level. So we know that this isn't just a dream to launch a new business or expand a business. This is literally tuition to send their kids to school. This is money to build the first house that doesn't have dirt floors, a thatch roof. This is money to make sure that the family is being fed 3 meals a day. This is access to healthcare and vaccinations. And this is changing the narrative that women are equal and that women deserve places in business and in leadership. And so when you invest in World Encounter, you're investing in humanity, because this microloan, of course, gives capital, and the business coaching and the success circles help it become sustainable and successful. And so that woman starts to create generational wealth for her family. And we're seeing girls and boys going to school for a lot of times the first time. Like I said, we work in rural Tanzania intentionally because there aren't other nonprofits and NGOs. Basically,
That means,
yeah, that are in those rural parts of Tanzania. That's why we're there. And we've said no to other locations because we know that some bigger players or other nonprofits are in there. So think of World Encounter as, if you went into worldencounter.org today and decided to make a donation, kind of visualize that money like flying over to Tanzania, and then it gets in the hands of one of our employees, and then they get in a big old Toyota van and drive.
Taking the picture.
They drive 8 hours to Singida. So if you're familiar with Tanzania, Arusha is where like Mount Kilimanjaro is. A lot of people fly into Arusha. It's like the center northern tip of Tanzania, borders Kenya, and then drive down 8 hours to the Singida region. And so you'll be in Singida town, which is essentially like the last town that has infrastructure. Like there's businesses on a main street. There's a hotel in that city. There's, banks and those sort of things. But then the tar roads end and you drive another few hours, and there's these multiple little villages. Some are on dirt roads. Some of them aren't even on dirt roads. I've literally been in the Toyota van, like driving, and I'd be like, what? This is literally off-roading right now. Like, there's no Google map here. There's
Wow.
So a lot of times, like, our employees would find a villager to be like, oh, I'm going to this village today to meet with this group. Can you help guide me there? And, we're going, through fields and ditches and around bends and no roads, and so it's very, very remote. Like I said, there's not internet there. So we're physically bringing like cash loans, so Tanzanian shillings, and handing them to the entrepreneur. And then we meet with them monthly with their success circle to guide them and support them. And so why World Encounter is needed is because there are still so many marginalized communities, and especially women living in poverty. And we envision a world where women elevate their communities and eliminate poverty. Because what happens when women start working is they take 90% of their income and invest it back into their communities, back into their families, back into their children. And then you see everyone thriving. And it's
is that a stat that is worldwide, or is that stat just specific to Tanzania?
That is a worldwide stat. The World Bank does that economic research, and so we know, and that's why if someone's kind of sitting in St. Paul or Tucson, Arizona, or wherever, well, why should I care about a woman living in rural Tanzania? Like what? And that's the thing is, I wholeheartedly believe that we are a global community. We are here to help the neighbors that we can literally see when we look out our window. And we're here to serve the women and the children and the men that we will never meet. And that philosophy of we all do better when we all do better. Mm-hmm. And when you lift a woman up in rural Tanzania, she's lifting up those children. She's putting money back into our global economy. And the one thing that I want to really illustrate is that when, like, there's a lot of nonprofits who, depending on like their strategies, or there's this book called When Helping Hurts. Like when the best of intentions are there, but what ends up happening is actually hurting the people that live in these developing nations. And so that's why we, if people ask us to do like clothing drives or shoe drives or food drives, we'll say no. It's always about investing in the woman and letting her decide how that money needs to be put into her community, how it needs to be spent, and making sure that the money stays within those communities so they can grow their local economy. Mm-hmm. And then once their local economy is stable, then you see them getting to play in the global economy. And it's just really important to think about the issues of problems versus acting on what's going to make us feel good in the moment. And so I really encourage people to learn about like root issues, like what causes poverty, what alleviates poverty. And a lot of times it's, we need to get capital. Mm-hmm. And the women of Tanzania, or anyone living in any developing nation, whether it's in Africa or Mexico or India or anywhere, there is no gap in talent. There's the gap in opportunity. And that's where World Encounter is coming in. Right. Here's your opportunity. We're here to help. Here's the money to invest in your business. Here's the support. And it's Let me
ask you, I know you have some goodies there next to you. What are some of the things that these women are creating through their businesses? You want to share some, you've started to share some items with me that you have, that these, are they from the women over there in Tanzania, or are these local artists creating these items?
Yeah, so we have, with the event coming up that we're going to get to talking about, we always do an artisan auction. But since we serve entrepreneurs, we see kind of the most common industries that the women start businesses in. Uh-huh. And so the most popular business is within the agriculture industry. Because what is a basic need that everybody has? To eat.
Food.
Yes. And so that is definitely, if you invest in World Encounter, you're most likely investing in a woman farmer, maker, or baker. And then a lot of times from there, that will be their primary business, whether they're a poultry farmer or they buy land and seeds and start growing crops and produce and selling them to their neighbors at a farmer's market. Mm-hmm. Or they, do commodity trades. So you'll see some women like buying the seeds and then selling them to their neighbors, and then their neighbors grow the produce, and then the baker or cafe owner in town buys that from the farmer. So again, it goes back to that sustainable, regenerative model.
Right.
And then there's the trade industry. So that's our second most popular. So this is where like construction, we have women who are making gravel, women who are making bricks, anything that is to, you know, help
Lord,
with the
when you told me about the gravel and and the woman who hand breaks
yes.
by hand, I was like, wow,
Yeah.
she could be really muscular.
Yeah, these jobs are no joke, because that's the other thing too, is like when I say farmer, when I say trades, we think like I'm from a farm. So when I say farm, I think, you know, like tractors and combine,
Right,
you know, I think machines, those machines don't exist. Like it is not rare to be in the village and see an oxen cart just go driving by you.
right.
But a lot of it, they're out there physically, like it's manual. They've got their, you know, their garden hose, and they're out there with their families, working together. And then for the trades, there's not like payloaders and dump trucks. It's literally like they'll buy land where there's boulders, and then
Mhm.
they'll be like chipping down the rocks, and then whatever their order is, if it's for like pea-sized rocks, then they'll hammer it down. And yeah, Jessica and Miriam are two of our women who do that very specific job, and 8 hours a day they're out there just like with
Wow.
their hammer. um
Getting it,
and
getting it in, getting it in.
yeah. And
Well,
then we have a lot of women who are small business owners. So perhaps they buy, you know, specialty items, just like if we walked into a boutique here in St. Paul,
mhm,
where they can get, you know, the water and soap and things, but then they can also get baskets or decorations for their house, you know, and just like, you know, I think a lot of times people are like, well, what do I have in common with someone living in a developing nation? And it's, we have way more in common than we have differences. You
yeah.
know, it's like these women want their kids to be healthy and happy. They want to make an income and support their family. They want to live in a beautiful home. They
Mhm.
want to have fun and, you know, decorate their tables and have parties and celebrations to honor each other. So there's so much in common, more in common than there is different. And that's a big reason why what we do and what we're trying to do more of is get to be in conversation with women entrepreneurs here in the States, because we can bridge those commonalities
Right.
and just kind of share, like, you know, I bet if you and visited about some of the joys and stresses of being an entrepreneur, the same things would come up for the women living in rural Tanzania.
So we're at our last question, which I would love for you to share what you were going to share, which is about this Rose event that I'm blessed to be able to speak at this coming weekend. Tell them about the Rose event happening on Saturday, this fundraiser that you're doing.
Yes, so the Rose event, this is the ninth annual Rose event, and Rose stands for Reaching Out to Sister Entrepreneurs. And you can see the website scrolling there on the bottom. And tickets are $40 to attend, and all the proceeds go to the microloan and mentoring program that we've been talking about for the last few minutes. And what it is it's a celebration of entrepreneurship. It's an artisan auction, and it's a time to learn about how women operate businesses in rural Tanzania and how we can fund them and support them. And so I am so honored that Dorothy-Inez is going to be joining us this year. So Dorothy-Inez is one of 3 female entrepreneurs from the Twin Cities surrounding areas who will be gracing us with a workshop during the Rose event. And so kind of the format of the event, it was usually an in-person brunch held in the Twin Cities area in Minnesota. And because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we shifted to an online event. Silver lining there is all of a sudden we saw people registering from California, New York, Arizona, Ohio, like all these different states. I think we had 8 different states register. And then we started selling tickets in Germany and South Africa and Australia and Canada. And so it ended up turning into an international event, which was a dream come true for me, because we are an international NGO nonprofit. So since we have offices in both St. Paul and Tanzania, and hopefully as we grow, we'll expand as well. But it was an international celebration of women in entrepreneurship, and that's exactly what we're doing. And again, this year, it's a virtual event this Saturday. It starts at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. And what we do is we get together on Zoom, and people are invited to, wear their spring outfits. We're from Minnesota, so we've spent, aside from the pandemic, we've been spending a lot of time inside and not in community together. So we still encourage people to put on their spring outfits, bring their brunch, sit down in front of their computer, and they'll get to learn about like 3 lightning workshops. So this year we have Erin Farrell from the Coven, and she's going to be doing a design workshop. And so she's going to guide us through how to make a tablescape, kind of design a table as a focal point in your home and using like your own unique design. And then we are going to do brunch with Bella. So Bella Lamb of Coconut Whisk is a local entrepreneur in the Twin Cities, and she's going to guide us through a vegan brunch. And so whether you're vegan or not, it's just a really fun way to learn more about that and do a brunch with Bella. And then last, we're going to have Dorothy-Inez, and she is going to, I could probably have you talk a little bit more about Dorothy-Inez, what you are going to do. Do you want to share the tea a little bit right now?
I'm going to let you talk about
okay.
About it, and then I'll try to if you miss anything.
So after talking to you, I was like, okay, Erin's setting the table, Bella's teaching us about brunch, and Dorothy-Inez is going to help us celebrate and rejoice in our own unique, beautiful masterpiece that we all are. And so we're going to just be talking about confidence and beauty. And I'm not going to give away any more about that because I really want you to buy a ticket and support World Encounter. But really, I'm so excited about these 3 guest entrepreneurs and just the knowledge that they're going to bring, and also just the joy. Like, it's 90 minutes for you to create space to celebrate, learn, and just be in fellowship. And we could all, it's been a heavy year. There's a lot going on.
Right.
There's a lot going on in Minnesota for us here locally. We all deserve 90 minutes of, we talked about self-care before too. Like this is also a way, like self-care doesn't mean like bubble baths and face masks. It also means community and joy. Yeah. And speaking of joy, this is new this year. I'm super excited. We get to highlight Caroline Naomi. She is a Minneapolis-based artist. She is going to be performing 2 songs live. So if you've been missing live music, like, get a ticket and you get to hear the talented Caroline Naomi. And then, of course, I'll be sharing photos and videos and stories of our sisters in Tanzania. A question I get asked a lot is, will they be joining us? Mm-hmm. And I just always remind the viewers again that we are working in a marginalized area where there is not access to internet, electricity, running water, proper toilets. And so most people haven't completed 6 years of formal schooling. So we aren't there yet, and not every person in the world has access to a laptop and internet. But if we keep working together, someday we will be in community with our sisters in Tanzania, as well as we work to build their economy and the infrastructure there. And then, so that's kind of like what we're going to be doing together on Zoom. And then all ticket holders get access to an artisan auction. And so these are items, we have jewelry. So I have some so we have jewelry that artisans in Tanzania have made. Let's see this. This one's really fun. And then baskets. So hand-woven baskets by artisans. And we have fabrics that could be like beautiful tapestries or tablecloths or table runners, trays and baskets, again, like just such beautiful things that can be an accent piece for your home or your office, or fun jewelry statements to wear, have fun, but also great opportunity to then talk about World Encounter or educate. If you get a necklace and someone compliments, there's an opportunity to educate someone about women entrepreneurs in Tanzania. And so we'll have that auction. And again, all proceeds from the ticket sales and the auction sales go to the microloan and mentoring program in rural Tanzania. So we always ask people to be very generous with the auction items, and don't bring your like Minnesota nice mentality either. Like, let's be competitive in those bids because it's all for a good cause. Like I want to see these go.
I like that. Don't bring that Minnesota.
bring that competitive spirit and outbid people. But yeah, it's just such a fun way to, again, carve out 90 minutes for yourself on a Saturday morning, be in community with other women around the world, network, hear stories, learn, shop, and it's all for a good cause. And it's fun. It's just one of those events that fills my heart. I was in your position, Dorothy-Inez, what was it, like 4 or 5 years ago? I don't want to do the math right now, but where I was, speaking at the event, and here I am, fast forward, the CEO of World Encounter. And so we never know how what we're in the work for, or why we're being called to do what we are, but it's really fun to look back and see that. And so, tickets can be found at this link that you see, women.worldencounter.org/rose. Again, the tickets are $40. That gets you access to the event, to all the workshops, and to the artisan auction, to the live music.
I just want to point out too, you said it takes $60 to help a woman start a business, and women reinvest 90% of what they earn back into their community. And so when they buy a ticket, they're almost fully supporting, and then they support the auction. I mean, you are making a difference in the lives of not just one woman, but generations to come. And so I really hope that you've learned from my sister here, Emily. Emily, it sounded like you might have had a final word you want to say. Was there something you wanted to share?
Yeah, the one thing, as you were talking about the investment in one woman, one thing I forgot to share is, on average, one woman impacts the lives about 7 to 8 other people in her village directly. So what that means for World Encounter, at this point, we've had about 2,000 people become investors of World Encounter. And those 2,000 people that have walked alongside us, because of that kind of 1 to 7 ratio, have impacted the lives of over 30,000 children and adults living in rural Tanzania. And we have a goal of serving 10,000 women by 2030. And so it's just a beautiful ripple effect. And like you said, it's like $60 is the cost of the first microloan. And then as we pour in coaching and support, a year to support one woman is the equivalent of $600. And I've started a business, and I think like $600 here in the States, I mean, that was like registering my LLC and filing with the state. Boom, $500 gone, and didn't do anything but make it legal. And so it's just the amount of money just makes such a huge impact.
So let me ask you, if they can't attend the event on Saturday, they've already got plans, how can they still maybe donate or give to your organization? Would they just go to, is there a main website that we could put in for them?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. So 3 things that I'll say for this. If you live in a different time zone, or you already had plans for Saturday morning, the one thing is that you can still buy Rose event tickets. So one, you could either pay it forward, so you could buy it for another woman who you think would love to attend this event. The other option is that since this is a virtual event, it will be recorded. And so there will be a playback that will be provided to anyone who purchased the ticket. So you can watch it on your own time. If, I have friends living in Australia, and so it's the middle of the night during our morning. So they watch the playback, but then the auction remains open for a few days. And so they can still participate in that auction as well. So that still is an option. So even if like 10 a.m. Central Standard Time is out of the question, just remember that like you would still get the benefits of the ticket if you wanted. So we encourage that. We love for everyone to hear about the Minnesota-based businesses that we're spotlighting, and also the women in Tanzania. But if it just doesn't work, or you're not interested, but you do want to invest in World Encounter, you can go to worldencounter.org. And at worldencounter.org, you'll see ways that you can take action with us. And so perhaps you have a special talent and you have some time and you want to volunteer with World Encounter. We have many different volunteer options for people, regardless of where they live. And so they can connect with me and we can talk about really what your passions and talents are. We have an inner circle where people learn about World Encounter and can become advocates for us, because we're a small team. And so we need multiple people sharing the story of World Encounter, because the more people sharing our story, the more women we'll be able to serve. So there's that volunteer option. And then, of course, there's always just the donate option, where if you want to give a one-time donation or a reoccurring donation of any amount, know that always helps. So whether you can give $5 or $500 or everything helps. Everything helps. And one of the best ways you can help any nonprofit is by becoming a monthly sponsor. And so you create a reoccurring donation that happens automatically once a month. And that really helps nonprofits budget out in the future and know how many people they can serve and at what capacity. And so I really encourage people that, think about if there's a dollar amount you have in mind, $50, $10 a month, and you can make it in honor or in memory of someone. We have donors doing really special things to honor people through their donations. And if you have any questions too, I'm available for email or Zoom, or, once this pandemic is over, face-to-face meetings too, or speaking at your corporate events or in your book clubs. Just anyone who's interested in learning more about international development and lifting up women in rural Tanzania, or connecting with women wherever you live, I would love to connect.
Well, thank you so much, Emily, for coming on today and sharing with us all about World Encounter. If you, like she said, if you want to donate, reach out to their organization and think about that. Or if you want to pay it forward and get a ticket for someone, or buy a ticket for yourself and just watch the recording at your leisure, that would be wonderful also, because remember, you're making a difference in the lives of not just one woman, but many people through your contribution and support. So Emily, thank you so much. I am going to have you wait for me backstage, and I'll be right there.
All right. Thank you, Dorothy-Inez, and I hope to see you all on Saturday.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. So thank you. I hope you all learned a lot about Emily's organization. I love her story and I love what they're doing. Tune in with me next Wednesday, when my guest is going to be confidence coach. Yes, another confidence coach. My friend, Kat Kim, will be joining us next Wednesday, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard, and we're going to have a really juicy conversation next week. Don't know exactly what we're going to be talking about yet, but I know it's going to be good. So thank you for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday.